Donuts, it is PK here, and I'm coming with a video. I thought I was going to do something with like maybe this patch update. I thought we were going to have a little bit more of an update than what we actually had, which is primarily was just fixing some bugs and issues. So there really isn't much to do, although I've had a couple small things. A few weeks ago I did some testings on Titan that I've been meaning to make into a video, but I don't really have enough testing to kind of roll them out of its own. I've also had some requests to do some report readings, so we could just kind of make this a hodgepodge video. Pardon me. I do have what's on here. I know a lot of people in the community have heard that we have had a beloved member pass. I really wish I would have recorded earlier because, I've said this before, that the community is such a heartfelt and come together community, especially in times of tragedy. We all have our differences and we have our competitions and our allies as well as our enemies, but we all still come together and feel empathy for one another, and this was no exception. We've had our member pass, and you still see some residual encampments left out, but since there was Alliance War, a lot of people had to pull their encampments, and we asked that they did because we didn't want any sort of drama relating to people coming and hitting the encampments not knowing and people's feelings being hurt. But we had a member, she passed after a long-term battle with cancer, and the community has really come together to show respect, and people from other kingdoms have named their kingdoms after her, and just always dropping by in KC or in chats and passing in condolences. And she was a very kind and sweet person and will greatly be missed by everybody that was fortunate enough to cross paths with her. So moving on from that sadness, let's go into some reports. I've gotten a lot of questions on Titans, and like I said, a few weeks ago I went ahead and did some testings on that with my other two bases. I have a T5 base and a T6 meat base that I decided that I would test against, and at that time, and I have done a considerable amount of research since, but at the time of these testings, my Enhanced Titans research was 88%, and my Titan Battle research was around 12-13%. The reason for that is a lot of my focus has been on my Gatekeeper and my Savior. And it's my opinion, at least where I am with research and what I'm finding with testings personally, that the Enhanced Titan is far more important than the Titan Battle, which is going to focus on your troop stats rather than your Titan stats defensively. So I wanted to make sure that my Titans were as strong as possible, since they are the buffer between the attacker Titan and my troops. And so I went ahead and poured most of my resources into the Enhanced Titan tree. So that's why it was pretty lopsided at that time. Still a little lopsided now, but getting closer and closing the gap. We can see this one just takes an enormous amount of sulfur on both ends. And I think where I am at now, I think I calculated it around 180,000 sulfur to finish up what I haven't done. Aside from the trillions of resources it costs, it is quite costly, so I'm going to be working on that slowly but surely. But again, as the time of these reports, we're going to see my Enhanced Titan was about 88%, the Titan Battle was right at about 12%. My primary reason for testing was I am very curious as to when the Titan is going to become stronger than my Dragon. This is both a curse and a blessing, I feel, because on one hand, it's frustrating for something to come out like this, and you're pouring trillions of research into it, or resources into it, and it's still not stronger than what you're already working with. That is very frustrating. At the same time, it's refreshing because I've played a lot of these other war strategy games, and when something comes out, it completely nullifies the investment that you made, maybe even last week, much less, months before. With this, the investment that people have made into their dragon research, into the heroes that focus on dragon, and the obelisks that give the dragon bonuses and everything like that, it's still valuable. It's still it still works. So I'm grateful for that at the same time. But it still makes me curious as to when one will outrange the other. What I also wanted to test is different types of Titan skills and how that affects the battle. So what I did first was, we can pull up, I have a lot of stuffs to go through, a lot of reports, but somewhere down here I have starred my angry kitten. Here we go. This is, again, my T6 base. I went ahead and hit it with my dragon first, and I did 15 million damage to Angry Kitten. After that, I sent out my Titan as I had it already skilled. My Warlord was a 3-star at the time. He was primarily skilled on the troop section, and I capped him. After that, I went ahead and I re-skilled him to do on the Titan edge for maximum damage for T6 troops, since I knew that that was the meat wall I'd be hitting. When I did that, I did manage to burn Angry Kitten. So it still only was about half as tough on Angry Kitten as my dragon is, and that's what I'm finding, or was finding at the time. I haven't tested recently with the more research that I've done, but I saw that my dragon at that point in time was about anywhere from quarter to half as successful as my dragon was. I then wanted to see if I was getting similar results with Happy Kitten, so I went ahead and hit Happy Kitten. This is my T5 base, and I did 40 million troop damage using my dragon. I then took the Titan, my Warlord, that was still skilled for damage to T6 troops primarily, and had a huge defeat in battle. What we are seeing here is that the Titan itself did take out 30 million troops, but power decreases due to Titan attacks on the sieging side don't affect the wins or losses, so therefore it didn't result in a burn. So the Titan did the damage, my hero and troops did not, so I was capped. After that, I re-skilled the Titan to do damage mainly to tier 4 and tier 5 troops. And then I was able to burn Happy Kitten. Now we also see this number here that says, Happy Kitten's forces have been decreased by 197 million. But then we see that there was only 30 million kills. So how does that number correlate to each other? I was fortunate enough to finally pin down VVIP. They didn't want to answer this for me initially. They did sufficiently give me an answer this time, and it is what we suspected. It is like a claw that comes down and removes a certain amount of troops, whatever amount of troops that it specifies. In this case, 197 million. It removes those troops from the battle. So, it's not sending them to the temple, it's not sending them to the hospital, but what it does is it takes those troops away from the defenders' attack pool, HP pool, and defense pool. So it's going to lower those pools, which is going to make it easier for you to penetrate them and burn them. Which is it's a really neat aspect of the Titan. I've seen some rallies that have that number go up into over 1 billion, and it's pretty insane. When I talk about those Titan traits, we can come over to my Warlord. He's now a 4-star. Slowly moving on up. But I'm talking about these traits here, which are like your Lord skills for the Titans. This was initially in that first report that I had where I was capped against my T6 base. This is what I had him skilled in, and it was just mostly... It made sense to me, logically, to do enemy troop debuffs. Because that's what you're missing with your dragon. Your dragon research is all focused on enemy troop debuff. So I figured that was going to be what I was going to need to be more effective attacking. But that wasn't the case. I needed him to be stronger to get past the enemy's guard titan and do more damage that way. So instead, I had this attack T6. We come over to the Titan side, and I put skill points. Because he's now a 4-star, I'm able to put some more skill points in areas that I didn't at the time. But I just ran the skill points all the way down to Titan attack, additional damage to tier 6 enemy troops. I also have one set just normally for tier 4 and tier 5 enemy troops, because that's probably what I'm going to find most of the time when I'm hitting people randomly. And then I could just build additional points from there as I level them up. But as far as attacking goes, that's what's been most effective for me and from what I'm seeing in my reports. It's definitely making sure that you're putting those skill points into making your Titan as tough as possible. As I get more points here, it's probably going to benefit me more to put those points into these Titan basic attack, defense, and HP. Which should also be beneficial to me. Now, on to report reading. We're going to go back to those Happy Kitten reports, because I don't like going through other people's stuff. Like, not that I don't think anybody would mind, or that you could really glean a lot when we start looking more into, like, the simplified section, but I just rather show my stuff. Now, I'm not really sure what people are wanting when they're asking for a more in-depth report reading. Are they talking about, do they want to learn more about the preemptive strike battle? So I'm going to kind of glisten over everything. And if there's something that's unclear, feel free to contact me and I will clear it up best I can. So here we are in Happy Kitten. This was my PvP battle win. We're going to pretend that I don't know who I'm hitting. So I just hit a random person, hit them for 40 million troops, and now I'm looking over the report, and I'm going to see what I could do better, or what maybe they could do better. A lot of the times I get people that'll ask me to test hit them, and they'll say, you know, looking at the report, what can they do to improve? And I'm going to let you guys know what it is that I see right away. The first thing I do is check to see if the attack was done, executed, all in preemptive strike. So you see that there's this preemptive strike area, and then there's the main attack area. I think we all know pretty much what preemptive strike is. The enemy is always going to come and hit your bottom tier, or attempt to hit your bottom tier, getting through their defense pool. Once they're able to do that, then your top tier troops, your preemptive strike troops, are going to hit back at the attacker, assuming you're the defender. If you're able to kill off their entire march, that is where the battle ends. It ends in preemptive strike. If you're not, any amount of the remaining troops from the attacker will continue on in the battle. And I lost my report, so we'll Alright, there we are. Okay, so if, let's say, the attack wasn't finished all in preemptive strike, usually, and a lot of the times when I hit people, I notice when it goes into the main attack, depending on how many troops that they were able to kill or not kill, but usually it's around 60% of their deaths are happening in that main attack. So if I hit someone for 300 million troops, usually 100 million is done in preemptive strike, 200 million deaths occur in main attack. And for me, what's most important is to stop the attack in preemptive strike before you start trying to worry about your HP and your debuff defensively. So I will recommend people to, if I see that happening in the report, to either increase their preemptive strike troops, or T6, T7, or strat, preferably their strat troops, and or increase their attack percent. Doing those two things will help end the battle in preemptive strike. Once you're able to do that, then you can worry about increasing your defense, increasing your HP, and minimizing the amount of deaths total. Then we come to the face-off results. Now, face-off is extremely difficult to win as a defender. There are exceptions to the rules, of course, if you are doing sync battles, if you are doing, capital battles, where both attackers are working with level 50 and 60 gears, then face-off can definitely happen defensively. But if we're talking about castle defense, where attackers are using Radiant or above, winning face-off as a defender is extremely unlikely. So that is something that, don't worry about as a defender. And as an attacker, you should have that in the bag. There was a point in time before Radiant, it was back in the time when Death Lord was coming out, and everybody was really excited about his passive world skills. There was a point in time where it was entirely possible to win face-off defensively. You'll even notice with the turtles, it gives extra HP upon winning face-off, but that's just not something that's really been able to happen since Radiant. Now, down in our buff window, this is what's called the Simplified Report. The computer algorithm, or the game algorithm, has gone ahead and added, not really an algorithm, but just the game. The game itself has added all the stats that are pertinent to your troop attack, all the stats that are pertinent to your HP, and all the stats that are pertinent to your defense. And after it's added all of those, it subtracts your enemy debuffs. And then that's the number that you're seeing on here. So on the left-hand side, those are my stats. And that is, for example, with troop attack, that is my infantry attack plus my troop attack plus my troop attack while attacking plus my troop attack upon dragon deployment plus my obelisk. It's all the stats that are available to me in this exact situation, minus the enemy debuffs. On the defender side, I can see that they have the most stats in infantry. They have a little bit of HP left. So odds are the majority of their troops should be infantry. You can always double check that by hitting the details and going into your troop information. But if you are trying to double tap someone quickly and maybe switch things up on the fly, that's what you're going to look at. Now, from here on, especially as an attacker, what's super important is understanding your gears and understanding your pets and what stats go with each. So it's important to go into your codex, take a while, really look at the gears and what stats go with each piece. Because for instance, or for example, there was a lot of times where I was hitting people and I wasn't getting down their defense. I wasn't able to zero out the defense very easily. And what was happening was I was using all the Radiant and then one Majestic piece. So I was, my entire 5 pieces were Radiant. My second accessory was Majestic. And it just wasn't getting my defense down. And although Majestic accessory does do a defense debuff, I think it's like 111% or something like that, it pales in comparison to the Radiant accessory. So I swapped it out for Radiant accessories, and I've had very little problem debuffing defense on a lot of players. However, sometimes I do over debuff and I have a difficult time getting HP down. So what I would do in those cases is maybe swap it back out for a Majestic piece. Maybe I'm over debuffing the defense and I can scale some of that back and debuff a little more with HP by using that majestic piece, which is going to give me a little more HP debuff, and as well as engraving it is going to give me more additional HP debuff. There's other things I can do too. I can look into level 60 head and chest pieces. Maybe I want to work with crimson type pets that do more of a specific type of debuff, which is going to give me more debuff than my satyrs do as an all general HP debuff. It may benefit me more to sacrifice some of that attack and focus a little more on HP debuff, because if I can get that number down to 0, I'm going to get a significantly higher hit than I would leaving some of those stats. You cannot over debuff in this game. So if you're debuffing someone down to 0, you can't add even more debuff and hit them harder for that. 0 is 0. So if my defense is 0, then I need to look into ways to maybe pull back on some of those over debuffs and look into debuffing something else, preferably their HP. And if I get that down, then I would want to debuff more of their attack. And then, of course, if you want to look at something more specific than that, you can go into the buff information and just really add all those numbers up. But that is how I look at a report. I hope that's helpful. I hope that's not too, like, random. I didn't really chart out what I was going to say. We just went right into it. We have True World coming up, guys. I hope y'all are as excited as I am. And I'm going to go ahead and post some links in the box below. Of course, you know, that patch update that we just had and anything else that's going to be pertinent on the developers forum. Like, subscribe. I hope this answers some of your questions. I've had a lot of people asking about those recent Titan tests that I've had. I've been sharing a lot of that with people in one-to-ones. And as I learn more, I will share, because stuff is going to change as I get better at this and as I get stronger in the research and with my Titan. And the more information that I can find out for myself, the more I'm happy to share with you guys. Everybody may not all have the same experience, so I'm definitely not saying that it is 100% the only way to go, but it is just my experiences with it, and I hope it's helpful. If you guys are looking for something else, let me know. I know I've had quite a few requests to do stuff defensively, and as far as defensive gear and whatnot, there's a whole bunch of different ways to go about it, and I will do my best to come up with something that I could really show you guys, rather than just say this is what I do, because I definitely like to be able to show you guys the testings, and, you know, we could flesh it out together. Sometimes you guys see stuff that I just don't pick up. And until next time.